Well, hello everybody. Welcome in. It might take a few minutes for everybody to get here. We had the reminder up. Uh, Welcome to Dennis from Friends of Brother Adam. This is our second video in the series on beekeeping for preppers, and Dennis is going to be talking about basically just starting right from the start, picking a location, that kind of thing. So, Dennis, go ahead, introduce yourself and your podcast, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay, and welcome to Friends of Brother Adam. My name is Dennis, and working with Cage tonight, and we are going to be again working on figuring out this beekeeping mystery that we have. um, I do podcasts, and I also do a few video casts on Odyssey under Friends of Brother Adam. And you can, if you go to Odyssey, you can find me at Friends of Brother Adam, no spaces, no capitals, and on good podcasts just about everywhere. So I'm really happy to be here tonight because tonight we're going to be talking about um, finding a location for where we're going to be putting our bees. Our decision on where to put our bees actually has more to do with um, their success than just about anything else that we do as beekeepers. Um, we are able to do a few things before we get to buying the bees um, or collecting the bees. We're able to um, do a few
Oh,
things like going to Google Earth and zooming down to the area where you believe that you're going to be uh, positioning your bees, and taking a look at the vegetation and stuff that's around where you're going to be placing them. Uh, a lot of times, beekeepers don't necessarily put their bees on their property. They use other people's property. Um, the um, farmers a lot of times have little corners that their combines can't get to, and so it's essential dead space to them. However, it's more than big enough for us, and a lot of times it has some really nice access. And if the farmers are happy with it, they a lot of times will allow you to utilize those little pieces of land for some kickbacks of honey. So
mm,
you take a little tiny bit of your profit and your what you make, and you trade it for the piece of land that you're going to be utilizing. Uh, we also, as sometimes people who want to utilize areas which aren't typically used for beekeeping. Um, we can beekeep if we're a little bit quieter about things. And most times they don't really care. The people who are responsible for upkeep and maintaining things like crown property, uh, national and provincial parks, a lot of times they really don't care whether or not honeybees happen to be fertilizing plants in national parks or provincial parks or crown land. And we are able to um, place our bees there and then reap the rewards from the bees and allow the bees to just exist there normally as they would anyways. You're just introducing them to their new home and then
okay.
gaining some of the rewards. And that really goes into more of what we were talking about earlier, Cage, about the stealth beekeeping or stealth gardening. Um, a lot of times people um, think that they have to put out huge amounts of money in order to uh, participate in probably the fifth oldest um, job in the world, and that's beekeeping or honey hunting.
Okay.
So by opening up your Google Earth and zooming in to where you're wanting to go, of course you're you're looking at an area, but Google Earth isn't necessarily going to know what you're doing. What you want to do is you want to zoom in and print off all the areas within a 5 kilometer radius, and it will tell you whether or not you're going to be beekeeping around marshlands, around, which is really cool. Marshlands have a lot of flowers and a lot of things that bees like. Whether you're going to be farming or doing your beekeeping around farming areas, and that brings up a whole lot of other issues such as pesticides, such as herbicides and things that might hurt your bees, but also gives you the opportunity of having your bees there for their flowers and the crops that they're producing. You might have urban areas that you're going to be placing your bees around. And believe it or not, bees love urban areas because it is a very unexploited area for their nectar and for the pollen. And we have a lot of trees on public areas. We have a lot of flowers within public areas. So, and I know a lot of beekeepers who get permission to put bees on rooftops, and they get permission to go and place them in community gardens, and then there's some beekeepers who don't ask for permission but just place them in areas where they can be guarded and located in a fertile area where they can progress. The beehives can progress. You might also find that you are in an area that doesn't necessarily have what you would think as a bee-friendly area, where there's lots of scrub. Like out in the prairie, we have our sagebrush. We have a lot of different plants that bees do like, that we don't typically think of as a place that bees might collect pollen and nectar from. What the bees that have been out in areas where there was scrub and they were taking it from sagebrush, the honey actually has a really interesting flavor. It's more of a cinnamon type flavor to it, so it's kind of cool.
Okay. Well,
So
yeah, because sorry, but yeah, I mean the flavor of your honey is directly a result of what they're getting their stuff from, right? I think you got an echo
their
there.
nectar
Yeah, I think
from,
you have me on
yeah.
twice, maybe.
So if you end up having your bees close to a canola farm, one of the things that you find out is that canola honey crystallizes almost immediately, like within a month it'll crystallize. And canola honey, you have to be taking it out of the hive fairly rapidly. We have farmers who are doing canola who want bees out there, and so they have the beekeepers take their bees out there, and they pay them a certain amount of money to have their bees out there for the fertilization. But the canola honey crystallizes so fast, they literally have to be out there literally every month taking the honey boxes off. And when they get the beehives back to their apiaries, they have to feed them enough sugar and sugar to in liquid form to feed them for the winter, because if they were to try and eat that canola honey, they would end up not surviving the winter, because
Okay.
it doesn't
So
uncrystallize with just their heat.
okay, so from a prepper point of view with the beekeeping, doing your research and making sure that you're maybe on a clover field versus a canola field, or what about the cereal crops? Are they okay, or does that not really give you what you're looking for? Or again, I mean, from a prepper's point of view, people are maybe trying to be again a little more stealthy. So is it an idea that if you're going to do the beekeeping as a prepper, maybe having a couple bags of a a wildflower mix to spread around, that kind of thing.
Right.
That
And so we always encourage, like beekeepers always encourage people to pre-seed the areas that they want their bees to be collecting nectar from. Um, it really takes an understanding of what you're planting, um, in the bee world, because some plants give their nectar in the spring, some plants in the summer, and some plants in the fall. So and you would think that as long as there's a flower there, it's going to be giving nectar, but that's not the case. I mean, it's even down to at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's not warm enough for it to give nectar, but at 10 o'clock it is, and it'll go until
hmm,
2 o'clock when it starts shutting down nectar again. So there's a lot of things that you have to learn about the plant world. And we always suggest actually the bushes and trees are actually better to plant for your bees than just regular flowers. And that's because
oh,
they tend to give nectar over longer periods of time. They have more flowers, and it's usually a larger nectar gain that you get. So if you are able to, and people won't really be expecting this in the areas, but you're able to plant a tree that flowers in the spring, and then you'll have your bees there to be able to capitalize that in the spring. A lot of our first flowers here on the prairies come from flowering trees, such as apple trees and plum trees and such, as
right.
well as dandelions. And if you're able to go and plant a tree, a lot of times people won't see that as um, harming the environment. Matter of fact, it's helping the environment because you're sequestering the carbon, blah blah blah, and you're you're creating a habitat by putting in trees. And it's one of those things that you can do to prepare for your bees, a year or two in advance, and prepare the area that you're working in, and then bring in your bees, and they're extremely happy on 2 years of growth. They'll just get a lot of nectar and stuff from even 2 years worth of growth on a tree. So
Okay.
um, it's yeah, seeding it is really great. The other thing that I would suggest is you go to your seed, um, your seed areas, and you can get huge big bags of clover or huge big bags of alfalfa, and they're different planting requirements. Alfalfa, I believe, requires to be planted deeper than would be um,
Well,
clover. But yeah, alfalfa and clover honey is primo. I mean, usually in the beekeeping world, the lighter the honey is, usually the more valuable the honey is. So canola, or not canola,
yeah,
alfalfa
the
and
clover and the alfalfa. Yeah,
clover
yeah, yeah.
give you the white gold honey, which is actually the highest um, um, costing honey out here in the prairies. So yeah, you can totally prep your area and get it ready to go. We watched the area that you were looking at, way out in the middle of nowhere, and it was Crown land, right? That you were looking at.
Yeah, it was crown land that you could apply to either lease or purchase, and yeah, there was tons and tons of wildflowers and all kinds of. There was blueberries, there was wild strawberries, there was Saskatoon bushes, high bush cranberry. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it was
So that's
a primo
that's
location.
totally a good area. That's totally a good area, and the fact that it had irrigation and everything, like
Hmm.
water present, um,
Yeah.
super cool. And if you were to spend, I know here in Alberta they have a government program where they will give you certain types of trees for a very low cost in order to make windbreaks. If you were to go grab some of those trees at a really low rate and put them out there and they were flowering, let's say in the spring, you would really be doing yourself a super high five there, by planting those trees out there, and literally nobody gives a care. So,
Right.
you know, you're
Yeah.
going out there, you're not leaving any you know, footprint that people will be upset about, and it's crown land, and you're able to use it. So it's super cool that you would be able to go out there and put a beehive into a hollow tree, and you know, have your pollination taken care of, and be able to go up into the tree and open it up closer to the fall, and have your honey and wax resources that you're looking for. So
Okay. Yeah. Because in the I'll use that area because people can go watch the video and see what we're talking about. And there was a lot of downed trees in the area from plow winds that had gone through, and also because it was an area that had been logged. There was a lot of cut blocks. There was a lot of roots. There was a lot there was old piles. They're scrub piles, the stuff that they don't want, and they just push it off to the side. Um, but I mean, that's a common thing, especially North America. Uh, from the Mexican border up to the top of the tree line, is that you're going to find those places. And again, now just finding the bees in your local area and at a spot that works for you. So it's really not that hard of a deal um, to find an area that has everything you want. And if it doesn't, again, inexpensively or even almost free, if you just find maybe in your spot, it doesn't have everything you want, but you can go not too far out into the bush, do a little digging and transplanting too, right?
definitely, and you as a former arborist would know which trees are more likely to have hollow areas, and just being able to saw in a little opening into that area, and putting a 3/8 hole into the door that you're making, throw some hinges on that, and away you go. You have a hive that you can go and raid whenever you need to make a new hive, whenever you need to utilize the honey and wax in there. When you are talking about getting the bees a little bit later on, there are several ways right now while grid is up that you can get bees. You can go and buy bees in a package, which means they come with just the worker bees and the queen, and they come in a netted package of 2 pounds of bees, they say. And you go and you purchase that package, you take it out to your prepared hive that you're going to be putting them in. You pop out the top and take the queen out, shake them into the area. There's a little tiny little cage that comes with the package that has the queen in it, and it has candy on one side with a cork, and then it has a cork on the other side. So you take the cork out with the candy, give it a little bit of moisture, and set that into your hive that you've created, and the bees will see the candy with the moisture on it. They'll start eating it and release the queen. And so literally, you
Oh,
put them in there, they do their thing, they release their queen. You come back in a month or so, and you have a functioning hive, and they're usually happy where you place them. Um,
oh, that's
um,
great. Okay, so um, keeping it away from bears and things like that is actually not that big of a deal, isn't it? I mean, you can pick your locations and go from there. Two questions I have. Um, so if you're making your own hive, and we talked about this in the first live stream, finding old trees that you can that either are getting hollowed out because they're rotting in the middle, or doing it yourself, or these kinds of things. But I would guess, this is just a guess, and this is what I want you to answer. You would want to stay away from a lot of artificial products like milk jugs and glass bottles, things like that. Or am I wrong? Can you make beehives out of those
sure.
kinds of things, or like can you make your own beehives
Yes.
out of those, or do they need something that they can kind of adhere to, or
Yeah. So bees, they like to adhere to usually wood is a great thing for them to adhere to. And they do not like to adhere to anything like net. We've been able to manufacture some interesting hives by creating hoops of wood that they would go up and attach their comb to. And then over top of the hoops of the wood, we put a burlap sack type of substance, and they won't glue that. But they won't put their combs on that. So you're able to space them out the space that you want on the hoop frames, and by putting that thing over, or the net over, you're giving them a little bit of shelter that they want. And then we would put like a woven basket or something over top of that, and you've just made a hive. And the woven basket gives it the waterproofness and the windproofness. The burlap sack tells them not to put the honey or put the comb here. And then the hoops that you've put in there, they'll attach their comb to the hoops and they'll just go and do their thing. So it's a little bit of a language of engineering that you're doing with the bees. You understand some of the ways that they, or the things that they need and the spacing that they need. And as long as you understand those two things, you're able to make them in just about anything. Like I've seen people make beehives in coolers, like the igloo coolers.
Okay.
They just put
Sure.
put their hoops on the inside, so that when they're taking out the comb, they just pull out the whole entire hoop out of there, or the frame that they've created out of the igloo cooler, and they're happy. One thing you do have to remember, though, is that bees require ventilation going through their hive in order to make things work. So usually a hole close to the top and a hole close to the bottom, so that they get that natural cool air going in the bottom, hot air going out the top, hot air and
Moisture.
Moisture, yeah, water
Yeah.
vapor. So
Okay, so
well,
my next question is, and I guess this is a bit of a spoiler alert on the garden and the greenhouses videos I'm going to be doing coming up. But in the greenhouses, I do a lot of hanging plants, and I do them on pulleys so that I can get them higher up in the day, closer to the warm area near the top, and it gives me more space. I don't just have to use floor space or shelving space, so I can get more plants in a smaller area. I can also vary the plants of where I put them for the time of year, the sun angle, so that the other plants get sun, etc. Now, my question is, I'm making those and I move them every day because I lower them to water and have a look, and then I put them back up. You wouldn't want to do that with a beehive, would you? You wouldn't want to have it moving around. I don't think that would make them happy. Or am I wrong?
You can do something like that. However, I wouldn't be moving them every day. They would get a little bit agitated and decide, okay, this might not be a good house to live in if it's moving every
Right.
day.
Okay.
However, it's definitely a way of doing things. I know in bare areas, you can put log hives in trees, and you strap a rope to either end of the log hive and you hoist it up into the tree, and then literally you leave it for a month or two and bring it down, check how they're doing, and then you can put it back up. The thing is that bees tend to come back to the exact same area that they left. When they get used to their hive, they go out and they do flights around the hive, and they take a
Right.
look at all the stuff that's around them. They took a look at where the sun is located, and then they go out and they find what they want to munch on and come back, and that's how they find their way, is by the sun and also the surrounding area. So if you're constantly moving where the hive is, they're going to have to go to that area and look around and go, okay, we've got to find it
Okay.
by smell. And that's the only way that they can find it after that. So,
Okay.
if you move it too much, then they get a little bit crusty on it and decide they might want to move. So,
Okay. Okay. No, again, that was something I'm going to be doing with the plants, and I plan on doing it in the stealth garden as well, using some trees as long as I can get sun to the plant and that kind of thing. So, um, did you bring any photos or any other presentation along with you this time, or?
I'm new at this technology here, so I don't know
Okay,
if it'll work. We'll have to see. If you want to carry the conversation really quickly, and I will take a look and see if I can make it happen. Okay?
sure. I'll just say hi to everybody in the chat, and if you're going to bring this into the share screen, I guess, eh?
Yeah, I will in a minute.
Okay. So yeah, like I said hi to everybody just about as they came in. So Jamie is here, and Stuart, hello, and Voodoo, nice to have you here, and Mad Chad, of course, and Lake Ferry Prepper has joined us. Hello. Um, yeah, I'm glad to see you all here, and again, round two. And before you ask about my hat, because I know it's coming, those of us in Canada know that this is a poppy, and we wear them for Remembrance Day. And this is a ship's hat that I still have from when I sailed with the HMCS Ottawa, which is one of our frigates. And I do not take the poppy off this hat. And I wear it a lot on Fridays because you always try to wear red on Friday, which is remembering everyone deployed. And I was in the closet today and having a look. Oh, Lake Ferry, Bigfoot's he found you. Bigfoot is here. We can't get away from him. So I was looking for a red shirt to wear and saw this hat and thought, you know what, I'm going to wear this hat. So that's what I got on. So for those of you that are getting here a little bit late, we've been chatting about making a location and choosing it. If you're new to beekeeping and prepping and you want to, or you are a prepper and you want to get into beekeeping and you're looking for a spot, your usual suspects for spots all beekeepers use alongside farmers' fields in areas where it's not going to interrupt the farming operation is a good idea. And those kinds of things. Then Dennis was saying that there are situations where you can do it in provincial parks and national parks with permission, that kind of thing. And as far as a prepper point of view, especially if you're trying to be stealthy, a lot of times finding those abandoned farmyards or things like that, abandoned buildings, areas in public lands. Or maybe you have a farmer friend or somebody like that that has an area of their property that they really don't use, that kind of thing. And then some of the plants that you can use that are beneficial to have around. And okay, Dennis, are you ready to go?
I'm trying to get this to open up here.
Okay, no problem.
One of the other methods that we talked a little bit about packages and how we can get our bees. I'm going to try sharing the screen here.
Okay.
Screen sharing.
Yep.
Okay. Share screen.
Hasn't popped in yet.
No, it says my.
You just have to pick one and then.
Screen.
Oh, really? Okay. What are you looking for a picture
of? I have a picture of bees that are up in a tree and they're just in a big ball. So I guess what I'll just have to do is describe it. And then.
Well, I'll just do a search on the internet and hopefully bring something. I've got it. Here we go. I think this is it. Oh, hey, here we go. Here we go.
One of the ways that we should be able to put bees into our area that we're looking at getting them is occasionally bees will succeed in leaving a hive without the beekeeper knowing. They're livestock, but they definitely don't listen to what you want. And so as a super organism, how they reproduce themselves is they make a new queen inside their hive. And before the new queen hatches, because usually queens don't like each other and they'll sting each other to death. So the bees will make a new queen. And before she comes out of her little cocoon, out of her queen cell, they will start pestering the queen that is in the hive right then. And they'll put her on a diet. They won't feed her, and they chase her around the hive until she's good and pissed off. And then she goes on the outside of the hive, and a whole bunch of bees go out with her. Usually about 2/3 of the bees in the hive go out with her, and they go out and find a branch that's about usually within a kilometer of where the hive is. And they go out, and she lands on that branch, and then all the bees come and surround her to keep her warm, because they have to keep her warm in order to keep her fertile. And so they hang on that branch, and then about about 1/6 of those bees go back to the hive and say, "We were successful. This works." She's gone. And so they will be hanging on a branch or on a fence post or something else, and there'll be a huge big cluster of these bees, and it freaks
Okay.
people out like crazy.
I think I have a picture of that. This is a cluster. I think I've got the one is of the. I found a picture of somebody made a really nice artificial beehive hanging from a tree. If you
Yeah,
can see it on your screen, but I
yeah,
think this here is what you're talking about, where they cluster.
yes. And so when you are starting up your apiary, when you are deciding where to be, a lot of times you're going to go talk to the people around you. So if you're setting up in a farmer's field, you're going to um, go find some swag that you're going to be giving to the person that you're going to be talking to. So one of the great things as a beekeeper that we, if we don't have our own honey, we will go purchase some honey from, like, say, Costco, and you get this huge big jug of honey, and you
Okay.
you you get little 500 ml quart jars, and you put some of that honey into the quart jar, print out a label for yourself for your bee company, and you go around to the people in the area and you say, "Here is a nice, wonderful thing of honey that your sweetheart will really like, and I am a beekeeper in the area. I was wondering if you had any property that I might be able to put some hives on, or I see that you're a farmer, and I'm guessing you probably put some herbicide and pesticides on your field. I was wondering if you'd give me a week's notice before you do that. Here's my phone number. And hey, by chance, if you see something like this ball of bees, that is a bunch of bees looking to cause problems, and I will happily come and for free take them off your hands for you." And
Okay.
that's a way of getting free bees. They will be out doing their thing, and they'll see this ball of bees that is really scary to most people, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? Oh, that beekeeper that dropped by." And they'll give you a
Yeah.
call, and you go out, and when bees are in this form, they are not going to be stinging you. they're
Oh, cool.
saving they're saving their energy, they're saving all of their stuff for when the queen reaches her area, and they go there and they start up the area. So they don't want to lose half of their colony stinging somebody who's trying to mess with them. They will rather just kind of move out of the way. And I would suggest that if you are thinking about beekeeping, you think about getting some PPE, which is gloves, and it's good if they're beekeeping gloves because they go down to about here on your wrists, and then a beekeeping jacket with hood. That's all you really need as far as PPE. If you get those, you're able to go up and literally sink your hands into the middle of this ball and just kind of tickle as you go in, and you have a container underneath, and you kind of tickle as you go in, and then phew, they just drop right into the container that you're in. And then you
And then
just
you've
get
got them.
a hand broom or something and just clean up the rest of them. And they all go into this area. And if you get the queen going in first, everyone will come. And within 5 minutes, they'll all be inside of that container that you brought. And
Okay.
then you stop up the container, take it to where you want, shake them out, and they're happy in the area that you usually put them, because they're really looking for an area right then and there They want to find a house because it's really important to keep that queen warm and to get her started laying eggs so that in case something happens to her, they have the ability to continue the hive.
Okay, so having that, and then having this when you get there for them to have a home to go to, and away you
Mhm.
go.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so one thing I'll suggest right now to folks, and you'll hear me say this in a lot of videos because it's what I've done my whole life. So I grew up on a farm. We had cattle, we had grain land, we had that kind of thing. And, I had a motorbike and I had a snowmobile. So year round, I was on something if I had free time. And I liked to hunt. And what dad taught me to do and made me do is I would go around and talk to the neighbor farmers. And if I wanted to go motorbiking on their land or snowmobiling, or if I wanted to go hunting on their land, I would offer to go fix fence for them, or I would chase Dennis's dogs out of the room. But no, I would do that. I would go and I would talk to the farmer, and I would offer to fix fence or help in some way, and get those permissions. And with my prepping, and I do it now. The place close by where I am, where I plan on doing the stealth garden this year, so I can continue the series that I started, is I exactly that. I've gone to the farmer, I've introduced myself, I've looked him in the eye and shook his hand, and told him what I wanted to do and got permission. I was able to use it for hunting season. I get to go snowmobiling there, and I'm going to be able to do a stealth garden. And it's the same with the beekeeping. You can do the same thing. Same with burying a cache or whatever. A lot of times, if you're open and honest with people, sometimes you want to be stealthy about it, but there are ways to do this. So,
Yeah,
so what's up? What's
and
up next, Dennis?
they'll do most of your work for you. Most of the work of collecting bees is trying to find where they're located, and they're more than happy to tell you where feral hives are, where they've seen several of these groups of bees hanging out. They'll tell you which fence post. And the funny thing about bees is they will season after season after season pass on the memory of where they went to rest before they went off to another hive. So they will rest on the same fence post, or they will find the same tree and rest in that same tree season after season. So if you get to know the people around, they'll tell you where these trees are and where the bee trees are, where they have the internal hive, and that's the gift that keeps on giving, because you'll be able to get a hive or two out of a bee tree, and you'll be able to get several swarms of bees coming and forming on those branches. And since the farmers are out, inspecting their fences and fixing fences and out feeding animals, they're out there all the time, and they will happily grab you and have you take bees out of their barn or whatever. Whenever they see the bees, they'll happily let you know about them. It's a lot better to get the bees in the cluster, in that big ball, before they go and make themselves a menace and somebody soffit. So, yeah,
Yeah,
they're
well, and yeah, when I again as an arborist and as a landscaper, when I ran those businesses, I did that quite a bit, especially with wasps and hornets and that kind of thing. It was getting it off a tree or getting it off a street light or getting it out from underneath a deck. Uh,
yeah.
I don't. There was a couple times it was honeybees and that kind of thing that I was dealing with, but usually it was wasps and hornets. But it does stand to reason that you can get your honeybees from there. Do you want to? Can we bring bumblebees into this again?
Oh,
Uh,
certainly.
because again,
Bum-
that it's all kind of important, right?
yes. Bumblebees are one of those things that are kind of lost in the cracks. Usually, bigger beekeepers will not even bother with bumblebees because you're not able to get much honey from a bumblebee. Literally, their little honey jars that they make are about the size of on a pencil, the eraser on a pencil. They're literally that size.
Okay.
They're not very big. And so the good and the benefit that you're going to get from bumblebees in your particular case is if you have a greenhouse and the plants aren't really going to leave the greenhouse, you have two options in order to get them actually three options in order to get them pollinated. The first one is what the Chinese do. They have destroyed their insect population totally and completely with all the pesticides and herbicides that they use, and with the horrible environmental stuff that they have. They've absolutely killed off every single bumblebee and honeybee there is. So they go around with a feather and on a stick, and they go and they tickle every single flower with that feather and spread the pollen around. And so human do the pollination. But what we do here is you can either leave both doors of your greenhouse open and have a beehive close by, and they will fly through, and occasionally they'll fly through and go, oh, hey, there's some flowers here. We'll do our thing with them. But honeybees usually pollinate areas of large concentrations of flowers. So unless you have, 200-300 flower pots in your greenhouse, they're really not going to bother too much with it. The occasional stray bee will get the taste of petunia flowers and go and snack on some of that, but really they don't really mess with them. So your best option for fertilization within a greenhouse is going to be your bumblebees. And bumblebees are easy to capture and easy to start off. However, you do need to know that bumblebees usually don't stay in the same hive more than one season. So you will have to either provide for them for the winter and shut them up so that you're able to keep them in a certain area for the winter, and then bring them out when it's springtime, and then open up and allow them to do their thing. A lot of times the queen will fly out from the original nest, and there's nothing you can do about it. So this is a lot of times for the smaller greenhouse people, this is a yearly thing that you would be doing. The queen bee is fertilized and is the only one that makes it through the winter. And so that makes it much different from our honeybees that winter with a group of workers surrounding their queen and keeping her warm all winter long. The honeybee goes and finds a nice little place to get herself mildly warm in an area, and then she goes into a hibernation state and wakes up in the spring and comes out, and she goes and selects a nest and starts her thing. So in the spring, if you see a big fat bee that's a bumblebee flying around from flower to flower, more than likely in the spring, that's your queen. So
and that's a common sight,
if you were to go and capture her and provide for her for the first week or so inside in a closed area, she would decide that, hey, this is a nice place for a nest. I've got some food. We'll worry about escaping later. And she'll start her nest and everything because her drive to get it going is so big. And that's one of the ways that you can do it. Bee houses that you make for bumblebees are going to be a 2-compartment area. The first compartment is going to have your pollen substitutes and your nectar in it. And then there's going to be a hole that's about an inch diameter going into the back area. And the back area has to be totally dark. And then you're going to put maybe pink insulation in the back to give her a nesting area. Or you might be able to go grab yourself an old bird's nest out of a tree and put that in the back area. She would love to go hang out in that. But you have to have the ability on the front of the hive to be able to close it up. And so the one that you're looking at right there, you'll notice that towards the top of the screen, it has an area that's open, and towards the back of the screen, it's kind of got stuff in it.
Yeah.
In the front, that's where you would put the nectar and the food. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is that little tray that's at the top there.
Okay. Yeah, I can't expand it any more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
So if for people who can zoom that, they have two little trays at the very top of the hive that are for the nectar and pollen, and then they have underneath an area. And what you have there is bees that were, that last one that you were looking at was bees that nest in the ground. And so this is something that you can have in the ground as well. It's got a little hole that's dug down, a pipe that goes to the bee house, and then inside the bee house is a bird nest that they're going to be living in. So if you were to capture your bumblebee and put her in there, and then be able to have some ventilation in there for air and stuff, but stop it up, you would be able to keep her in there for about a week. And then after a week, you'd be able to unstop it, and she would be going out and doing her business, and that's where she would stay. So in a greenhouse, this is advantageous because you're able to bring in your bee nest. You're able to situate it and figure out a place you want it, leave it for a week, go open it up, and the bee will come out when she's looking for nectar and supplies for her babies, and she'll go around and clean up all the pollen in the area and bring back little teeny bits of nectar, and she'll be very happy in a greenhouse. And she won't kill herself by banging against the window.
Okay.
Which honeybees will.
Let me ask you a question out of the chat here. Five Virgin Prepper wants to know, there are white dotted bumblebees and black headed. What's the difference in honey? I'm guessing that maybe she's down in the States, but when it comes to different varieties of bumblebees, is there a difference in the honey, or?
You will probably not be able to harvest any honey from the bees. The only reason that you would have bumblebees around is for pollination purposes.
Okay.
Because and a good thing for you to look at if you're looking for further resources is you can get on our wonderful YouTube, and you can look for a hurried up bumblebee nest. And so they take pictures every I think it's like every hour. And so it shows you hour-long in one picture.
Yeah, okay.
Really quick and sped up.
Right.
And you can see them building a honey pot and building another pot for the brood and building another pot for the pollen. And then as they eat the pollen out and the honey pot or the pollen pot is not used anymore, they break that down, use the beeswax, and they go over to another area, build it up, put eggs into it. They come back, they have used the honey, so they take down the honey pot, they move it over here, they build it back up, and it's just a constant movement of resources and brood all the way around the nest. And it would be impossible for you to grab a chunk of it and say, okay, I'm going to make honey and squish it out. If you're looking for honey, honeybees is where to go.
I guess that's the other thing about really, knowing how to garden in your area and knowing how to beekeep in your area, because again, people that have longer seasons and people that have, things like that. Again, we have people in the chat here from all over the States and Canada. And of course, that means we have all kinds of climates and all kinds of, sun hours and grow zones and all that. I'm going to be a little selfish on a question here because I'm going to be doing the greenhouse and I plan on doing it for a year-round greenhouse. Am I going to need several colonies of bees? Like, do they need to hibernate
Yeah,
or
so if you are doing bumblebees, you will probably need about 3 or 4 bumblebee hives. If you are doing honeybees, you are going to need at least 2. And the
okay,
reason we say that to everybody starting out, you're going to end up having to learn a whole bunch prior to being able to call yourself a beekeeper and be able to keep these little animals alive, um, or little insects alive. And so you need 2 so that you can say, okay, this one's not doing as well as this one. Something's wrong with this one. Let's take a look closer and find out. Go ask some questions from somebody who knows, be able to fix it with the hive that is working, and be able to swap some brood back and forth, or if it's not collecting enough honey for its needs, you can pull honey from one colony and put it in another, type of thing. So
okay,
with honeybees, we suggest 2. With your bumblebees, it's going to be a hit and miss, so we suggest like 4 or 5 usually.
okay. Yeah, that's good to know because again, I mean, bees wasn't honestly. I mean, it was always something in my mind, but it was something I shied away from because I
Well, it's
knew that
more
it was
work.
going to be a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
And even with the year-round greenhouse, I didn't think of it. And with my indoor garden that I had years ago, again, that was purely for the vegetables, and none of them relied on flowering or being, you know, uh, anything like
Yeah.
that. So pollination,
Yeah.
right? So, but it's funny because when you and I met and we got talking about all these things, and it was like, ding, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
It's well, and we usually talk with people, like when I go to a trade show, or an area where I'm up there giving speeches to people or answering questions one on one, whatever it may be. Um, we usually tell people that you don't really realize how much a bee does until you get a beehive in your area. When I came here to my particular area, there is uh, a property owner that has 4 or 5 trees on his property, and they would put out. He's got a pear tree, an apple tree, um, a prune, or no, not a prune, a plum tree, and just a flowering crab. And he said that he would get the occasional fruit, 50, 60 fruits on his tree. And he was quite happy with that because he was, picking them off or whatever. And he's quite happy with that. I showed up with my bees, and the next year he had a bumper crop. I mean, we're talking enough for, we had the local Hutterite colony come out and start picking the darn things because there were
Wow,
so many. Like
that's
it's
always good. That
incredible.
is, that's always good. Yeah.
And
Right.
our local gardens around here have really flourished with the bees that I brought in. The bees do wonderful things for all the plants and things around. It's just a net positive gain on just about everything.
Okay. So, I, if you don't mind, we got about just over not well about 7 minutes left. So, if you would like to kind of just go over again a few things to look for, especially on the prepper's point of view for finding a location and making the bees work. And then the last thing I'd like you to do is a plug of your podcast.
Okay, wonderful. So just to sum up, literally, when you're looking for a place to put your bees, you need to experience the area year round, go around, see what flowers are blooming, see what plants are growing there, take a look at what you need, throw in some trees, throw in some fruit bearing bushes, and get a hold of some alfalfa and spread it around. It'll be bringing in the deer for the hunting season, and you'll be able to have some food for your bees that you're going to be looking for, or purchasing. You're going to be looking to see what would fit into the area, whether you're going with natural hives such as a log hive, or if you're going to be bringing in your Langstroth equipment that you purchased. So you need to go through and take a look at all the things that you have. You need to look at your neighbors and what they're growing. You need to go in and look at their water situation, because you've just been looking at their food situation. You also need to worry about their water situation. Bees fly and poop, so they never drink water close to their hive. So if you end up having something like what you were saying previously about having certain pools of water that the beavers have made, they will much rather go to something like that than a bucket of water close to their hive. So you just need to be prepared for that. And bees also like to have a flavor to their water. So a lot of times beekeepers will throw a small little bit of salt into the water, and it gives it a flavor. Sometimes they throw in some minerals into the water. That will give it a flavor. Unfortunately, if you are beekeeping around a place that has a pool with chlorine, that will win 100% of the time. Bees love to be able to grab a piece of the water, take it back to the hive, and give it to their friends and say, okay, this is what it tastes like. This is what it smells like. Let's go get some. And so when you're doing your survey, you need to check to see if somebody has a pool with chlorine in it, and apologize in advance because they're going to go there.
Okay. So
it's not very
so what
good
I've
for
done,
them, but they like the flavor to the water.
Okay. So yeah, just quickly, what I've done and what I had done with that place that I was doing the stealth garden is I had found a mineral lick that a natural one that the animals were doing naturally. And I found another place with a spring. And I was able to dig up a bunch of that portion of the mineral lick, not take the whole thing, but I took a good portion of it, about a 5-gallon bucket, and I took it over to the head of that spring. And there you go. Right. So, okay. Same thing.
Totally.
So yeah, plug your podcast.
Really would like you guys to come and check me out. I have 70 some podcasts on Friends of Brother Adam, and literally you can find me in just about every podcast there is. I got onto a podcast sharing group, and I broadcast to that, and then it goes out to the internet. I don't receive any monetary compensation for my work. However, on the picture that I have of my podcast, I have a little thing on there that says that you can donate Bitcoin and this is where type of thing. I would really appreciate anybody who finds value in what I do to like and subscribe. That brings everybody to the area. And if you have a little bit of Bitcoin you want to throw my way, I really appreciate it. And the other thing that we do to make sure that we stay afloat as a company is we also do one-on-one counseling for beekeeping and making sure that you understand what you're doing. These podcasts, if you were to go through the whole entire gambit of the podcast, you will eventually have what down in the States is a master beekeeper. You won't have the experience because I can't give it to you over the internet, but we'll go over all the topics. We'll explain everything. And it's a great way to learn because you plug it into your phone and you turn it on, and for an hour you hear me blah blah blahing and giving you the information you need about beekeeping, and then you can go about doing your daily work and everything that you usually do on the side. So and I really appreciate people stopping by. I always say the traffic that comes and the likes and subscribes always helps my fragile male ego and keeps me going on some of these things. So thanks for coming by, and thanks for listening to this podcast. Cage is a really good friend of mine, and I appreciate the traffic that you bring to his site as well. It's we're doing good here, and that's why I'm coming, is we're doing good. So anyways, back to you, Cage.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody in the chat and watching online. And we'll be back next Friday. I'll have a reminder up on the YouTube channel. So until then,